what the heck is going on with the Golden State Warriors right now? We don't really talk too much about the Warriors like that. We don't talk. We got a lot of friends of the show from the Golden State Warriors, but we don't talk too much about them enough. They're a second seed right now, with a lot more questions than we thought that they would have even a month ago. I was talking to some folks yesterday, and we're talking about, Draymond's out. We don't really know what he's going to look like when he gets back. He has a back issue. Jordan Poole has kind of been waning with his jump shots and turnovers. And then you got Steph, who is seeing the other side of his great start, where it's not he's carrying the team, but I don't know if he has right now, if he's feeling the effects of that load that he carried on to start the season. And, a team that was firmly in the second seed and had such a great start is now on the descent, man. They got blown out by Minnesota the other night. I was in the building when Luka came back with the Dallas Mavericks. They're in a weird space right now, man. And it is, in some parts of this season, you thought they were going to be a title contender, and they still are, obviously. But a lot of questions there in Golden State, Raja.
Yeah, they have a style of play that can't withstand certain pieces missing for extended periods of time. Namely, Draymond. He does so much for them. Yeah. In terms of just kind of being the backbone of who they are, for sure, and that emotional leader. But also, his offensive skill set is a perfect match for the way they want to play. They built around that style, right? And what it accentuates and kind of highlights what Steph's able to do with all of that ball. I mean, ball movement, and then a great passing mind like Draymond. And so when you take that out of the mix, they're going to struggle a little bit. The NBA season, it's a long season, and you'll hear people say, I've said before, you want to be careful not to peak too early in one of those like marathon seasons. And I'm not saying that that's what Golden State did, but maybe it's a good thing that they hit a lull at this point in the year, just coming out of All-Star break. You have to factor in the reintegration of Klay. I'm sure it's not the number one reason for some of their play lately, but it was going to catch up at some point, Logan. Like, you don't just drop Klay Thompson back in, the brilliant player that he is, and expect it to just be, hey, we're good, we're never going to miss a beat. Like, they're gonna be an ascension, and then you might plateau and you might dip a little bit, and then the end game could be a much better product with with Klay there. But maybe they're in just one of those areas of a lull or a plateau. But right now is when you can afford for that to happen. And so hopefully for Golden State, Draymond comes back, he gets the back right. They hit the bricks, kind of rolling down the stretch, and they get that momentum rolling into the playoffs and become the playoff threat that we think they could be, or that we thought they could be at the beginning of the season. I'm hoping it's not a case of just peaking and coming out of the gates way too quickly.
When's a good time to have this lull? If you have to say during the season, what type of team do you have to have this type of lull? And what is a good time of the season, if any, to have a lull like this? Is it March, right before the stretch run in April? Is it in December, January? When's it like a time you can have a lull?
I think the best time to have a lull, I mean, for every team it's different, but I think the best time to have it would be right before and right after All-Star break. Like, right before All-Star break, if you came out of the gates hot, you probably separated yourself a bit and put yourself, firmly in the playoffs or upper half of your conference, so on and so forth. You can afford a little slippage. It's natural going into All-Star break. And then coming out of the break, you could be a little sluggish. There are a couple of weeks there where it may take you some time to get your footing. And then, for that last third of a season, last quarter of a season, you need to be hitting your stride. You need to be, guns ablaze, everyone kind of dialed in and locked in and really starting to play good basketball. Now, there are teams with stars that are, that transcend the sport, so to speak, that can get away with not doing that. Like a LeBron team at times can get away with not doing that. There are guys who can flip a switch, and the NBA happens like that. I don't like playing with that, though. Like, you better have a star that is just bigger than life to do that.
Yeah, I don't think, honestly, I mean, we've seen over the last week, LeBron can't help his team right now. There's nothing saving the Lakers right now. It's over. But when it comes to the Warriors, though, man, it's an interesting case study, right? Because they wanted to. This is kind of what they. I don't know if they came by surprise, took anyone by surprise this year. I mean, I didn't know if they were going to be in this mix right now, but this is probably a best case scenario for them. And when I look at their roster, I see a guy like Draymond that is so vital to their team, and it's showing. But they have other guys that may be a year away, and they have to a Jonathan Kuminga's like really shown. I think if he has like one summer, he'll be really good next year, right? Not to say he's not good now. He's showing spurts. And you have all these younger guys, and I'm almost kind of seeing this team. I don't think they win a title this year, but I think that there's seeds right now. They could win it next year, or they can at least be in a better prime position, because I feel like there's just so many question marks with this team, even with a guy like James Wiseman, who hasn't played hasn't played all season, and then you want to integrate him into a postseason type environment when he hasn't played all year. It's just a lot of question marks. How do you see, like, how has your opinion of them evolved since maybe even 2 months ago?
Well, I've always kind of felt like this was who they are. We had these questions. We talked about this earlier, maybe even in the preseason about, the James Wisemans and whether or not they were going to be ready, whether they were going to be able to take that step to be the type of supporting cast that could win a championship. That was going to be a question mark. Kuminga's been a great story. Like he's going to be a star in the league, as long as he continues to keep his head down and trust in the player development and put his work in. I mean, he is a good physical, athletic, rangy, skilled player. That's the type of thing that franchises need to fall into and draft to continue to keep that window open around the Stephs and the Clays. My opinion on them hasn't changed. I think, they play a certain way. And it's really hard to guard them when they're clicking and they're firing on all cylinders and they're executing that style of play. They just don't have the margin for error with a guy like Draymond. It sounds crazy because I imagine, Klay, if you ask me who's a better player, like when they were healthy, Klay or Draymond, you'd say Klay, right? But you could afford to miss Klay in the way they play. And you could plug in, a Jordan Poole or someone else. And it's not going to be Klay, but you're not going to miss as big of, you're not going to miss him as much as you're going to miss Draymond when you remove Draymond, because you don't have anyone that can really fill that void. And that's not a knock on anyone in Golden State. He's really, really talented in playing, and doing the things that they ask him to do out there in Golden State. But I think it's interesting for them, Logan, because we talk about playing good basketball. And when you look at the Western Conference right now, if you're Golden State and Memphis, and Golden State has a significantly harder schedule down the stretch than Memphis does, their strength of schedule, Memphis is a little lighter. You don't want to be pulling that 3 seed playing 6. 6 is going to get you Denver. You're talking about, Michael Porter Jr. and maybe maybe Jamal Murray coming back. You slipped to 4. Now you're looking at Dallas. You got to be really careful in that Western Conference that you don't pull that first round card that could get your ass beat.